Welcome to Swedish Stew's latest video. In this video we're going to be looking at 3 different Mao Fengs side by side. All 3 of these Mao Fengs are from my friend who makes Mao Feng completely by hand in the Tankou region. For those that don't know Tankou is the town at the base of Huang Shan Mountain, the tourist attraction. So this is the core region of Huang Shan. It's interesting to note that while we always hear Huang Shan, Wui Shan, like it's one mountain, most of these are in fact mountain ranges. And so you always have the core region, for Wui Shan this would be Zhengyang, but then there's outer layers that also produce tea and can also have very good terroir, but usually not the same as the core region. These 3 teas come from the core region. So this year when I was buying from my friend, he asked me which grade did I want. And when I say grade from my friend, I am referring to pick time. So this is not so much an AA imperial grade and all the other shenanigans you hear. Got a little napkin stuck to the middle of that one. And all the other shenanigans you hear from other companies. This is a very quantifiable grade. And so he asked me which grade did I want, and I said, well, how many do you have? He goes, oh, I have 6. And I was like, okay, give me all 6. And so that's what we did. So what I have now available is 6 different picking times of Huang Shan Mao Feng. And these 6 picking times fall more or less within the time span of a month. So some of them are going to be very close together, but from the beginning to the end, are going to be completely different. I'm so good at that. So what we're starting off here is this is the earliest pick, the first pluck. This picking was just before Qing Ming, which is about a day or 2. It's interesting to note that Qing Ming doesn't really apply to Mao Feng. Qing Ming more applies to the Bilochun, Long Jing, that kind of more eastern China that are usually picked or would start picking about a week before. Mao Feng can be picked before Qing Ming, but it's a little more but it's a little more of luck, it's a little more coincidental, and so Qing Ming doesn't act as a cutoff date. So as you notice, I'm using an open vessel, a glass gong dao bay in this case. I'm not closing it, I'm not using a gaiwan. This is very common for the green tea region. I've noticed that in recent years, I've noticed that sometimes you go to a green tea farm or you go to a green tea region and they will use a gaiwan, but if you ask them a couple questions, for example, I usually go, why are you using a gaiwan? They'll give you an answer along the lines of to make it look pretty. When we're talking about flavor, when we're talking about pure tea, it is the open vessel is the more traditional way. Not traditional, it's the preferred way, I would say. As some of you might have noticed, this first picking had a little bit less leaf, a little bit less water, which is going to make it a little bit more strong, but it should be okay. I think that brewing out of a gong dao bay is a very interesting skill to have. And there's a lot of small techniques to it. The first one is to be able to pour the tea without getting any of the leaves to go in. As you can see, I did an okay job. But really the skill comes in knowing when to pour. And I'm a little late on this pour, so unfortunately I can't, I'm in a rush. I'll talk about what makes that trick good in a second. But the trick to pouring the trick to knowing when to pour the first tea is that the leaves are going to start to lose their dry look. You know, when you first put leaves into water, it looks like dry leaves sitting in water. But if you give it a few minutes, they begin to open up, they begin to look wet. You know, the water begins to seep into the leaf. I used about 90 degrees Celsius for this. I don't completely trust the measures on these water temperatures, these water boilers, so about 90 degrees Celsius. Another little more geeky fact about drinking green tea is that while all green teas will get the same general temperature range, the really specific brewers should customize where in that range, from say 80 to 90 degrees Celsius, the green teas, the water temperature should be. And this customization comes from understanding the leaf. For example, Bilochun, which is a small, early picked, tiny, more delicate leaf, should get close on the lower side of the temperatures, closer to 80 to 85. Mao Feng, on the other hand, which Mao Feng, let's say Guapian and Hokui, these ones can get a little more closer to the 90s because Hokui and Guapian are bigger leaves, more sturdy leaves, just from their picking. And Mao Feng never went through most Mao Fengs have never gone through a shape-making step. A traditional Mao Feng has no shape-making step. There is no flattening, there is no curling, and therefore the membranes on the surface are still intact. There are some Mao Feng makers who will do a rolling step, and my friend does do a rolling step for the later picked Mao Fengs. The reason he doesn't do the rolling step for the earlier picked Mao Fengs is that, first of all, the early picked Mao Fengs are very small and they can't stand up to it. They won't be able to, they'll just get crushed if we try to roll them. Because it's a very small bud, very small leaf. Also, they don't need it as much. You know, the rolling step is meant to bring out aroma and flavors. There's just so much soft complexity in an early Mao Feng that you don't really need to roll it. It's really more in the later ones where they're naturally going to be a little stiffer, a little more solid, a little more bitter, that you do need to work the floralness and the sweetness out of it a little bit more. Good Mao Feng makes me really happy. Good Mao Feng just hits this spot of just the ultimate refreshingness. You know, Mao Feng doesn't really have as strong as characteristics as some other teas. You know, it doesn't really hit you with the chestnut like a Long Jing. You don't get some bitterness, nuttiness from a Bilochun. There's nowhere close to the vegetalness of a Guapian. But what Mao Feng really is its savouriness, is its refreshingness. And when it's very good, like this one is here, it manages to be thick but light at the same time. A lot of Mao Fengs I've tasted, even here in Twinchi, in China, they have that nice savoury thickness, but they're a little heavy. And it's not, it can be nice, it's not a bad characteristic, but a good Mao Feng can have that, sorry, burping, a good Mao Feng can have that thickness, but also be, I think we're about to see my glass crack. Okay, that was, I'm a little nervous this is about to crack. A good Mao Feng can have that thickness, but still be refreshing. And I'll say Mao Fengs are definitely one of the harder teas to appreciate because it is in the feel, it is not so much in the flavor. And so sometimes you have to taste a few to really appreciate when it's good and when it's just kind of average. So that's the first one. Ooh! I'm getting a lot of, actually, it's a kind of a Long Jing chestnuttiness to it. I think 90 degrees Celsius is kind of a solid, was a good temperature. And I'll look back and I'll measure how long I let that sit for. But yeah, 90 degrees, or whatever that was, worked out quite nice. Yeah, wow, really, it has that Long Jing chestnut aroma. It's super nice. It has the Long Jing chestnut aroma, but it lacks, what we see from this one and going into this one, is it lacks just the clean, pure refreshingness that this is. I mean, this is the sweetest dew from heaven. You know, so the name sweetest dew comes from a Lu Yu quote, when he says a good tea should be like the sweetest dew from heaven. And I remember I read that quote in the English translation even, and it just clicked, I got it. I was like, yep, know what he's talking about. And I think this Mao Feng embodies that, because it's just refreshing and sweet and lively, and gives you so much without really asking for your attention. This one, on the other hand, does give you a lot, but you know, it's a lot of great characteristics, but it just lacks that liveliness, just lacks that light almost. You know, this might be a weird analogy, and I might take it out of the video, but like, so number 3, it's interesting, what we're seeing here is we're seeing that this one is starting off very light, very refreshing, but not too many strong flavors. What's happening as the tastings go on is it's slowly is the key word here, slowly starting to lose refreshingness, but getting more flavor. Starting to lose lightness, but getting more flavor. This is kind of a great understanding of how teas progress through what it means to be an early pick tea, a first pluck tea, and then in the second cycle, in the third cycle. This is a great understanding of how flavors progress over seasons, I would say. You know, you see the same thing when you're looking at white teas. You know, if you have one maker, one field, and he has Silvenido, Baimudan, Gongmei, Shomei, you're going to see the same thing. Going back to this one. And so what you see here, you saw very light, very refreshing. Not much strong forward flavors, which might make it hard to appreciate for people who are new to Mao Feng. In this one though, you are seeing more solidness. You know, that chestnut aroma has kind of become a nuttiness, a chestnut flavor, a nutty flavor. And actually it's this third one that you see has that refreshing but kind of heavy taste. And this is the kind of quality that you see in a lot of Mao Fengs here in Tunxi. So kind of to understand where Tunxi lies in relation to Huang Shan, so we have the core mountain, and so if you draw a small circle, that's the core mountain. If you draw a slightly bigger circle, you put a 2 next to that, it's the second ring, and that's like right outside. Still very good, still very high. And then 3, 4, 5. Tunxi is about 6 or 7. Say about 7. It's about 7 rings out. So it does technically still fall in the Huang Shan mountain range, but definitely by no means the core region or close to the core region. About an hour by bus. Interestingly enough, Qing Ming, I believe, falls actually in, I'll have to double check this, but I think Qing Ming falls in the Huang Shan mountain range. And you get a lot of Qing Ming makers who actually make green tea and they sell it as Huang Shan Mao Feng. This can be a little bit of bullshit, to be honest, because they don't use the Mao Feng cultivar. They will use the Chuye, the Qing Ming cultivar. So, let's go back to number 1. And floral. The floralness of this tea. This one has a floralness, so this one doesn't have. And it's very interesting actually. My friend who makes it, I think the floralness is on purpose, and I actually think one of his favorite things about this tea, one of the things he particularly takes pride in, because he loves flowers. I often compare Mao Feng to oil actually. In that same way, if you let's say you were to just sip oil, like olive oil for example, olive oil has a flavor, has a feeling, but not really that strong forward flavor. It doesn't really hit you with much. But at the same time, it's thick and it's flowing. And that's really what Mao Feng is. This is particularly interesting because, since I am by myself and I am going to be drinking 6 teas, I am going to be dumping. What's particularly interesting is that I've heard people talk about, and I've witnessed a bit of it myself, local cuisine having an effect on, having a relationship, I'll say, to the tea's flavor. And I think, no. And I think that Huang Shan is actually one of these examples, because Huang Shan, a little another Chinese nose fun fact, the area that Huang Shan is in, the area that Tunxi is in, used to be called Huizhou. And it was only about 30 years ago that the government switched the name from Huizhou to Huang Shan to promote tourism. So I like to still refer to this area as Huizhou because, 6 rings out, I think that's a little too far away to really be called Huang Shan. So Huizhou cuisine uses a lot of oil. And as an American living in Huizhou, it took me a while to get used to. I remember I first got here and I was like, great, all this good food. And then about 6 months in, I just remember just going to lunch and I was like, oh my God, everything has oil. I've been eating oil straight for about 6 months. And so about another 6 months later, I've gotten used to it and I have found the less oily stuff. But it's a very oily dish, a very oily cuisine, which fits with their oily-like flavor of Mao Feng, in that same fluid, soft, refreshing, but full taste. So right now these teas are for sale. And I want to talk a little bit about me selling tea. I sell tea kind of as a hobby and kind of as a way to share the tea I have. I chase tea, I study tea, I drink tea as a passion, but the selling of the tea is not quite financially motivated yet. I would love to make some profit, I would love to sell all my tea, but if I sell all my tea, I'm just going to use that to get more tea. You're not going to see me one day in a very nice suit that came from tea money. And so when I put a tea on my website, I really am saying, what I'm saying is, I found this great tea and I want you guys to try it. And I think you guys are going to love it. Or I found this great tea, I found these teas, and if you drink them together, they're really educational, and I think you're going to love them, and I think there's something you're going to learn from it. That's the other thing I'm doing. I want to complexify people's understanding of tea. I think that right now there's a very solid foundation for Chinese tea knowledge. I think judging by just Reddit and Facebook and Instagram, a lot of people are learning the solid basics on how tea is made, where it comes from, a little bit of the science. Some people are getting very knowledgeable. And I think, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take that to the next level. Be like, okay, so yes, Mao Feng is made like this, this is how Mao Feng is made, but actually if you look within that, it's a little more complex. There's a couple ways they can do it. They can roll it or they can not roll it, and here's how they can roll it. Okay, yes, there's more than one pickings, so here's the different pickings. Let's talk about how each picking is different. Yes, it comes from Dongting Mountain below Chun, but there's different areas within Dongting Mountain. So as you guys noticed, I'm in a new location going along the river, and about 10 o'clock at night when everything was closed, there was one tea shop, brand new, that was lit up, so I went in, and it's beautiful. And what you do here is you rent out a room for an hour or two, and they give you 1 or 2 teas, and you can just come and drink tea and have guests. And so this is where I'll be having a lot more of my tastings, a lot more of my videos. Hopefully the sound quality is good. I think visually it's a lot nicer. I'll still be doing Instagram lives from my house, but this is one of the things. There's a lot of new stuff coming for Sweeter Stew, a lot of things I'm going to start doing better. This is one of them. So as you noticed, I'm leaving some water at the bottom. So the trick, the skill, I'll say, the gong fu of pouring from one gang dao bei to the other is to keep a steady stream. To keep calm, which is a little tricky when you're talking, but to keep calm, keep control, and keep the steam steady. If you do that, the leaves will stay in the first gang dao bei. If you are very uneven and shaky, that's when leaves are going to fall. And a trick to that is to go slower than you might think. A lot of people when they pour tea, they want to go fast, or even they want to go at a moderate speed. But really, slow pour is a safe pour. This is when you're getting into noodle broth. Like this is just chicken broth, just pure broth. This is like noodle broth, like broth that you've been cooking some udon noodles in. So it's a little bready, but just very lightly, not like an aged white tea gets bready. Very delicious. So here it is again, this third one. This one just is full of refreshingness. This one keeps the refreshingness, but it starts to get a little more flavor, a little more sturdy. This one has a little bit of that refreshingness, but you're really seeing you're seeing more of a sturdiness to it, a thickness, a bit of a heaviness to it, a little less pure than the other ones, which might be better for people kind of just getting into Mao Feng, because it definitely has a lot of Mao Feng qualities, but it can be a little, things are a little easier to enjoy. But if it's a little more bold, things are a little more easy to enjoy for someone who doesn't quite know. Out of the three, obviously number one's going to be my favorite. Just number one just has this level of qualities and characteristics that the other two kind of touch on, and that a lot of Mao Feng you taste, they touch on some savouriness, they touch on some brightness, but this one's just full of it. It's like all that's going on here. Refreshing, and I don't know if you can see it in my face, but I drink it and I'm just like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how do you have these characteristics? Process.